Hi, everybody, and hi, Jason. We're back for another Focus to Evolve book discussion. How are you doing today, Jason?
I'm doing well, having fun still. Still learning. I mean, that's what it's all
Okay.
about.
I feel like I'm working on my PhD in like knowledge and love and kookiness these days. That's what
Oh, a PhD in kookiness?
Yeah, just
Let's
learning
go.
all of the things. I'm so hungry for all of the things. And speaking of the things, we are talking this week about the book 4,000 Weeks: Time Management for Mortals by Oliver Burkeman. And it was I liked the book. It was great. It's definitely a meta skills, like let's shift your brain in a certain direction kind of book that I can definitely get behind, because a lot of people who, when we're training them in time management techniques, a lot of their excuses or complaints or just words around why they can't do what they're suggesting, I feel like is rooted in a deep level of not understanding the concepts that Oliver is talking about in this book. And basically, for me, the summation of the book is the title. He's saying that on average, if you're looking at life expectancies for human beings, we have about 4,000 weeks of life on this planet. And his argument is time management should be so important because 4,000 weeks is not a lot of time, but productivity is so often the depressing focus of time management. And I have to agree. What do you have to say about his assertion that time management is important, but productivity, blah, that's not the point? What do you have to say about that?
All right. Great intro. Way to set it up. When I the first mm, 20% of this book, I was kind of like, oh, Oliver, this is just kind of like another time management book. And I wasn't real excited. And then he starts getting into the thing about thinking about our thoughts
Mm-hmm.
about time,
Yes.
how we perceive it, and by the way, where it came from. We
Yeah.
humans are the same stuff that the rest of the cosmos is, including Earth and all of its natural rhythms.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about how the only reason that the clock was invented, not too long ago, like 13 seconds ago, on the grand scheme of things, not even 13 seconds ago, was because humans needed to know kind of when should we coordinate to do certain things. And so some brilliant dude came along and said, let's do this thing where it's regular and we'll call it a minute, we'll call it an hour, something like that. And all of a sudden, the minute and the hour became our new church.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of the rhythms of all of the cosmos and nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so now our new God is minutes and hours, and we started to believe it was real.
Right.
And now everything is checked off of the new hour and minute deity
Mm-hmm.
instead of the natural rhythms. Like back in the day, you would milk a cow and get the proper milk. Well, now we milk for 6 months ahead. And by the way, since we can milk for 12 years ahead, we go ahead and do that anyways because we have exponential technologies that enable that. That's a proverbial example. But it really did pick up speed for me after like the second chapter. I was like, oh my gosh, this dude's next level.
Right.
So if you are a real nerd about figuring out your narratives around perception of time and this productivity thing, and are you just getting more done to get more done, to get more done, to get more done, to get more done infinitely, which it is infinite. So you're
Right.
playing a very dumb game. And I'm sorry to use that word, but you're playing the dumbest game possible.
Right.
Instead of just doing what you define as the architect of your life and your dreams, stopping and doing something more meaningful, like build relationships and find love and do some inner work and take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that infinite, I can do more now thing.
Right.
It's bad.
Right. He says, you will never stop having things to do. Never. You'll never stop having things to do. So release that thought and do what is important now. A lot of what he is suggesting in this book is do the next thing that you can do now. Stop trying to extrapolate all the things you have to do the thing now. And it just reminds me of before I was doing these trainings with you, I was in the corporate financial environment, and I started out working there with 3 financial advisors that I was supporting, and then it grew to 5, and then it grew to 10. And like, that's a big shift in the number of people that you are supposed to be completely supporting all day long. It's a lot. And every time that I started feeling overwhelmed because of how much more was on my plate, if I could stop associating with that overwhelm and just like create some space between me and that feeling, and I just stopped and I said, okay, I can only do one thing right now. What's the important thing to do right now? And then I would do it, and I'd work on it, and I'd go into flow state as I was working on it, and I'd finish it, and I'd say, oh, there's some more anxiety because I don't know what's next. Okay, what's the one thing I can do right now? And I would do it. And I would just constantly be doing that throughout the day. And it took the anxiety out of the equation, because if someone was asking me, why didn't you get these 30 things done today? It's like, because that's not possible. I am a very efficient person. You know that I'm a very efficient person. Nothing falls through the cracks with me. If that didn't get done, it's because something more important was on my plate, because there are 10 of you and I'm the only one who knows all of the things that need to get done. And I am doing the one important thing right now. And I will get to that thing, which is not as important, in the normal trajectory of it. But just like separating from the overwhelm and just stopped the anxiety if I was just focused on what I was doing that was important right now. So, and that's something that he talks about in the book, is just doing what you're doing right now.
Yeah, presence.
Mm-hmm.
I love your story too, because we're not going to give any names or names of companies, but the firm you were with, where you went from, one advisor to 10 advisors, there are probably going to be some people listening that say, I'm in an office with 27 or 50 advisors, and I support a lot of them in a matrix type hierarchy. And well, let me tell you, the firm that Tana was with, it's not a small timer firm. It's the one where every move requires the lawyer, the CPA, and 5 consultants, because you're talking about big money. It wasn't the $1 million portfolio stuff. It's like the upper stratosphere stuff. So much respect to you in a high stakes game with some big time people.
With big egos.
With gigantic egos. We're talking, I will give away the place. It was in Manhattan early, and then in your new office here, but we don't want to go away too many breadcrumbs.
Right.
So, all right. So well done finding that truth then, and now really polishing it here in this new world and helping others to find that, even if you are in a really hard spot like Tana was. And by the way, like I was in a gigantic chemical company deploying ERP systems and CRM systems globally. You want to talk about a frantic rat race. Try launching an ERP system in simultaneous countries. It's brutal. So we get it. And we teach the way out of it in our trainings. There are so many points in this book after the second chapter where it was kind of like, oh, that's all already been written about. Well, then he starts getting to thinking about thoughts and that meta level, as you mentioned. Then it got really interesting. I could go on all day, but what's another point for you? And then I'll call out a couple of my points from the book. Yeah,
I enjoyed how he talked about technology. And if we think that technology is going to be our savior, we're probably going to be disappointed, because the technologies that we use to get on top of everything in the end fail us, because they increase the number of everythings that we need to do. So before email, we were just handwriting things and faxing things, and it was a lot slower. But then you get into email, and email exponentially increases the number of correspondences that you have to do every day. And dating websites, before dating websites, you would have just the people in your sphere that you would be able to say, oh, there's a possibility. Oh, not a possibility, because I tried that one out. There's a possibility. Oh, but dating sites, it's like, here's 13,000 people that you need to kind of farm through to see if you are finding the one. And Facebook shows you how many events that you could be at or that you're missing out of. And so if you're looking for technology to save you, that's probably a false god too, because there is no technology that doesn't just increase the burden because of the scale that it can replicate.
Yeah, and I'd love to jump in here on that point. I remember having a real aha moment when I crossed that path in the book, and this fear of missing out. We've all heard of FOMO, and some on the call have probably heard of JOMO, joy of missing out, which is the anecdote to FOMO, fear of missing out. And then I kind of started to put some things in my head, and I thought, this joy of missing out thing, because if it rips you out of presence, because the grass is greener over there, you get trapped in that. And I got thinking, who's the richest human that I know? And I've had, with trainings and the network that's growing, I've gotten to know some people who are kind of redonkulously rich. And I think, okay, they're rich. They can do anything. They don't need to work. Neither do anyone in their downline forever, the rest of this earth. So what are they doing that I'm not? And even if I were them, what else would I be doing? And so I created this little pie chart in the sky. And I said, okay, of all of the gazillion trillion things that we could do as humans at any given moment, the richest human that I know does such a small slither of those potential things that you can't even see it. It doesn't even look like they're doing anything. And then you compare what I can do with what I have, or what you have compared to that. You're both at almost absolute zero compared to like all the things that we could be doing right now, from enjoying time with your child to playing golf or sailing the Greek islands. I don't know, whatever, cutting your toenails. The point here is the joy comes from present mindedness, not the thing that's being done.
Right.
So yeah, maybe that rich dude is sailing the Greek islands and wants to hit all 2,300 of them, or however many there are. And that's a goal of theirs, but it feels like a task list to them. 2,000 islands. And then, what other island chain has a bunch of islands? I can do that one next. And then the next chain and the next chain. Yeah. Guys, it never ends. Right. Even the leisurely stuff never ends and becomes a task, which feels yucky.
Right.
Why is it that these mega rich people, you hear it on every podcast, every interview, they all said, got to the top, didn't feel like what I thought. I don't know why people don't believe it until they experience it. Right. Every single one of them say it. So let's just all believe it, and then kind of stop thriving for that grass greener thing. Pull it back into my little slither of the whole pie of trillions of things. That's my slither. Richest person in the world has his tiny little slither. It's all almost irrelevantly small. And let's just kind of get back to now. So this is about presence. Yeah. And he talks a lot about how Monday was never intended to be hated. Wednesday was never intended to be hump day. That's just because we bought into this thing that the weekends is free time. We were institutionalized, and it's fake. It's actually fake. You zoom in and work on that joy of missing out thing, knowing that you're never going to get to it all. So you might as well just kind of have fun with exactly what's on your plate, which is kind of, that's kind of the big take home for me, was reinforcing that nowness, even in the gritty stuff that we have to do in our work lives. And let's face it, we love our 2-year-old. We love them. Oh my gosh, they're so cute and cuddly, but goodness gracious, some of that is not fun. I mean, no, but just try to be in that. And that's what it is. So it's all about present mindedness.
Yeah. He says, we're not entitled to 4,000 weeks or any at all. So can't we just marvel more in the time that we do have? I noticed this a lot, that thought of the joy of missing out, when I was going back to work after I had our son. I put him into daycare after my maternity leave. So he was only 3 months old, and he'd go to daycare, and he was so stimulated because of this new environment that he'd never been in, that he wouldn't take a nap during daycare time. He was just so busy playing and exploring this new world. So the moment I picked him up from daycare, and PS, he would be at daycare for 12 hours a day because of the number of hours that my husband and I would have to work, which is awful. for me. I understand why parents do it, but it just felt awful. So my son, after 3 months old, after not taking a nap all day, I would put him into his car seat and he would immediately fall asleep. And he would just sleep for the entire night until we woke him up the next day to get him ready for daycare. And this same pattern happened for a couple of weeks, where the only time that I really saw my son's eyes open and he was interacting with me was on the weekends. And I just stopped and I said, what is the point of this? Like, is this parenthood that I am just like letting my child during all of his waking hours be taken care of by someone else? And I understand why people do that and why people have dual incomes to pay for the things that they need. But for me personally, I just felt like this is not it. Like, this cannot be it. So now having the flexibility to be able to walk my son to school and pick him up and walk him home from school, that is so, like, that freedom to do that, to be with my son in those moments and to have more time with him is so magical to me, because I noticed when I was trying to be present and he was asleep when he was a baby, that I was like, this is not what I want. I need to marvel more in my child. He is not just the thing that I try to get rid of or to make fall asleep, because he's kind of more difficult than the things that I've had in my life up until now. The difficulty is the beauty of he is my like greatest spiritual teacher. And I wouldn't get that if he's sleeping all the time or being cared for by other people all the time. So I don't exactly know where I'm going with that. It's just like the joy of missing out of like that steady paycheck for me so that I could live in the moment more with my son was a trade-off that I knew would make me happier. And it definitely does.
Yeah, and I can help on kind of bringing that home. I think it's a super important message. You know, when we go through anything that's gritty or suffering, instead of fast forwarding as fast as we can out of discomfort of any kind, our experience as observers, like awareness, creatures that are aware, like if we can get outside of our wins and our losses and our roles and our thoughts and our beliefs, if we can really get up to that, the real us thing, the observer and the selector thing, you would very quickly see that, whoa, we're this miraculous meat locker that gets to witness all of this, and it's a huge symphony. And I hear a lot about Alan Watts when he talks about how it is literally like a symphony. And if we egoic humans, when we're caught in our narratives, had our way, we would fast forward the symphony to the very end, to the crescendo, and it would be over. We wouldn't go through all the dips and the sads and the baritones and the syrup, whatever all the different tones are. We would miss the whole symphony because we would just escape to the final big crescendo. That's really what our egoic self would do, but our highest self would very clearly say, what are you doing? Be with the pain, and then you will feel the joy and the high notes so much more. And this is a part of the essence of this book, and part of what Tana was saying. She is going to sit with those rough days and nights with the 2 and 3 and 4-year-old as they grow up, because it's part of this beautiful, miraculous awareness that we were gifted. So it has to do with our perception of time. Do not try to escape it. It's part of the symphony. You don't want a single note life. You want the whole symphony, all notes, all instruments, all of it. Be with it.
Yeah. So it was, for me, the book was just a lot of meta kind of, let's get into your deepest base level thoughts about time and presence and what's important. Because that's, if you have no foundation with those things, then the other things will be off kilter too. And I appreciated how he went straight for the core of it in this book. It wasn't about do this trick, like while you're heating up your coffee in the morning, do this thing at the same time. It wasn't that level of book. It was going straight to the core and saying, get this foundation, because a lot of what you are basing the higher or the most outer level stuff on is based on a chunk of lies. So let me expound on what I see the lies as and see if it doesn't just kind of come back out to the surface for you with more truth, because you have more of a core of truth.
Yes. Yeah. And you know, this is about living joyfully. That's kind of what this book is, really the nub of it. And our narrative around how time is spent and our chasing of comfort is a big part of reducing our joy. And I remember Sadhguru talked about how humans aren't suffering in life. Humans are suffering in memory and in imagination. They're not suffering in life. They're in their mind. They're not actually observing like right nowness. And it's an overlap of what this guy is saying. He's saying, end this disastrous illusion and narrative you have around time and missing out. It's not real. It's actually not real. So it's really cool. Nowness is where happiness is. And I think he really nails it in this book. I'll contribute one last passage from the book that I found was awesome. And then we'll button up. I know we're getting to time. I'll just read it straight. This is kind of right at the very end. I think it may have been like the last paragraph or something like that. It says, finally, at the age in adulthood, sometimes very late in adulthood, it's very unsettling when you realize nobody, and I do mean literally nobody, gives a real shit about what you were doing and what you're doing with your time and with your life. It's a terrible feeling and yet wonderfully freedom-inducing at the same time. So some of this fear of missing out, and I'm going to work more hours, I'm going to find ways to be more productive so I can do more, to get more money, to buy things, to impress people that I don't care about. It's a lot about that. And please don't have that regret at the end of your days where it was like, whoa, those passing of life, that thing was real. And I probably would have chose otherwise. You chose otherwise with your son against some pretty hard odds, not odds, challenging other path that you could have taken. You could have stayed on the Western culture path is what you could have done. But you didn't. You went the path of your heart and your gut. And you said, hey, mind, the bigger things are going to take over on this one. And so congratulations on that. And I hope we all can do the same, including myself. It's a minute by minute decision for all of us, always, till the end. So I hope you don't have that regret at the end. I love the way he ended the book with that. For sure. Yeah, I think we both loved it. Obviously, as always, we didn't get to everything that is in the book. So pick it up. I think it was released in August, so it's pretty new and we highly recommend it. But thank you for anybody who watches this in the near or far future. We appreciate your attention and your consideration, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Jason. Thank you, Tana. Thanks, everybody. See you next time. Bye.